Welcome back to Ontario Cryptids, everyone. I'm happy to see that you've all returned for another exciting episode, so stay tuned since you won't want to miss this one. If you love hearing these encounters, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you've had an encounter of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com and it might be featured in a future episode. Now, let's dive into these amazing stories. There's an old World War II building in downtown Toronto Liberty District. I used to work there when I was into security. It's currently a condo showroom with a warehouse, but overnight it's just effed. You would walk in and have to check the entire area on the main floor, which is usually not really an issue, but there are big glass doors that separate the showroom from the warehouse. You would always get a sense of being watched, at least for me, because apparently for me, it is very easy for me to connect on these feelings. Either way, you would almost always feel eyes on you while you're inside. Nothing sinister, but eyes nonetheless. There's also one floor elevator that lets you go from the main floor to the second floor. Once you head upstairs, though, shit gets weird. The upstairs has a wooden staircase that leads up as well, with light switches right at the top. The second floor never has the main lights on after hours, but rather a random switch up between a set of pattern of lights like orange, purple, and red. You can either turn those off and the main lights would keep on, or keep the colored lights on and walk through. But nah, F that. While up there, you would feel even more eyes on you, but worse off. The sound of high heels walking on wooden flooring. Usually either walking away or towards you. There are two alleyways of cubicles that all lead towards two big floor-to-ceiling windows that are right above the glass door to the warehouse, which looks down into the said warehouse. Apparently, my manager at the time laughed at me when I said what I heard, and she said she also heard those steps when she did those patrols, but also saw something worse, where if you stood in the hallway facing the glass window, you could see someone walking around behind you in the reflection. Thankfully, I never saw that. When you come up those stairs, there is a small room right behind the reception desk that is open from both sides, where they keep their printers and supplies. For the months that I did that patrol, that room has never had its lights on, but this one day as I came up those stairs, the lights were on. I knew this was the one day I needed to grab my phone and started recording my patrol. I did the patrol on video, but nothing happened. So I left that alone and stopped. But just as I was about to end the patrol for the night, I decided to record again, just in case, and oh boy. First, as the camera panned to the side, you suddenly see an orb fly towards the camera. Then, as I made my way down the stairs, you suddenly hear shuffling from the cubicle on my left. I turned the camera back to look at it, and that's when you started hearing the heels on the wood. After they stopped a few seconds later, suddenly someone or something on my floor pressed the elevator button. That's when I got the F out. All of that is on video, and I made sure to save it to this day. There have been multiple other units that also experienced the footsteps. Another time I had to use the washroom downstairs. While in there, almost dead quiet by the way, I could hear movement around above me. We only go in one at a time, never in groups unless you ask for backup, because all TO units knew about this effed up place. And so I was alone at the time. Soon after, I suddenly heard a scream up above. I got out of the washroom immediately and left the building and called for backup, and they called for a police escort as well. We all walked back in with the cops. We go upstairs and they checked all the cubicles, fire exits and all. We found nothing at all and left. Apparently the police knew of this place as well. So I'm glad that I'm out of that line of work. And stuff like this has been happening here for decades. I can only imagine how many people have seen stuff like this before me. This story may be short or it may be drawn out. I'm recounting this event as I type, as it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I have experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about it. This happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia, and I have for my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with my friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally get to about halfway into the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trails to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There's always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for this time, and it was approximately 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finished smoking and continued our walk when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. As soon as the forest gets quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaking and uncertain, almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the cracky speaker and robotic voice. If you know what I mean. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer per se, but no matter how far we ran down the trail, this eerie voice remained the same volume, going over and over with no quitting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we are in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, gasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening it was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there was a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. This scream sent birds flying from their nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I have only told to maybe 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. I know I will receive questions such as what the voice was possibly saying or to explain the area and what happened after. I genuinely cannot remember what the voice was saying, if anything intelligent. I don't know if I can understand it then, and I certainly can't recall understanding it after several years of blocking it out of my memory. All that I recall is that it was a fluctuating voice in a pitch shaking, almost just joining sounds together. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 more minutes from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from sprinting. I've been having weird stuff happen to me all my life around here. Hearing my name being called from a distance, having rocks thrown at me, hearing whoops and tree knocking. I'm sure it's been around as long, if not longer, than I've been alive, and it's been one of those ones messing with me throughout my life. I was outside for about a minute or two before I saw that movement in the corner of my eyes. I think there's 2 possibilities as to why it came around. Either it had just got done hunting and had a mixture of curiosity or maybe exhaustion to come by here, or it had gotten out of a fight with something else and was injured and was trying to find the quickest way to safety. I'm very glad that the situation didn't escalate at all. It definitely seemed exhausted and was more focused on itself rather than me. I'm very happy to have experienced this, but I'm also very humbled by this experience. There's a very high chance that there was, at the very least, one more that was in the area, but I had gotten my adrenaline going and my senses were honed in on that specific one that I just hyper-focused on that one. And yes, it could have been testing out to see what my dogs or I would do to see if it was in a safe area. There's endless amount of things that it could have been doing. What I want to do now, or what I wish to be able to do, is to be able to see one in broad daylight, figure out a way to communicate with it. There's been many stories I've heard that people heard them talking in their own language that they couldn't comprehend. And to not only let it know that I mean it no harm and wish to learn everything I can from it, not only its own wisdom, but to turn speculation into facts. That's going to mark the end of today's episode. Thank you all for listening until the end, and I hope you found these 3 encounter stories intriguing. If you enjoy this content, consider becoming a channel member for exclusive perks. Now let's acknowledge the current OC members. I would like to thank Elizabeth, Jim, and Teresa for their contribution and support as members of the OC membership program. Your support is truly appreciated. And of course, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you have an encounter story of your own and would love to share it, I would love to hear it. Please send it to Ontariocryptids@gmail.com, and I would be honored to share your story with the OC community. I hope you all have a fantastic week ahead, and be sure to tune in next week for another thrilling episode on Ontario Cryptids.